with Intention, podcast where we bring you stories from around the globe. So, hello and welcome to another episode on Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. And today I have a beautiful guest with me, Natasha. Welcome. How are you today?
Hi, Ava. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, where are you from, and then we'll get started after that.
Okay. Bit of a story. I started off in the UK, and when I was about 22, I'd always been fascinated by metaphysics, by the invisible. And my poor dear mother was going a little bit psycho. So my story is if my mother hadn't been psycho, I wouldn't be psychic. But I really got interested in like what made people tick, what made her tick. And I was trying to help her, but of course I wasn't qualified. So I got into all these different metaphysical disciplines like palmistry, astrology, numerology, and was trying to make sense of what was going on the planet, why this happened to that person, why that happened to that person. So I got really drawn into palmistry. And at the same time, I started my career as a flight attendant. So I grab willing victims and say, hey, can I read your palm? Don't know what I'm talking about, but let's read you. So I started reading people, and I thought I was just getting the information from the lines, but it was evident that other stuff was coming through. And they'd say, how do you know that? And I went, I don't know. It just comes to me. So fast forward 8 years, when the flying life kind of left me, the airline went bankrupt, I came to Canada, and I just really pursued that avenue of being a psychic. It took me a while to accept that I really had a gift. And since then, I've evolved from palmist to spirit medium, past life regressionist, quantum healer, Ghostbuster, TV and radio personality, kind of doing it all. And now I'm starting a new program called Intuitive Manifestation Coaching. So very excited about that.
Wow, so many beautiful things. You're on a wonderful journey here, so I can't wait to hear more. So today we're gonna talk about more about your books. So
Okay.
you have I think I'm psychic. I thought you were dead and ghostly, but
Yes,
let's focus on your favorite one today. What were
that would
your
be this.
reasons? Oh, there it is.
That would be
Beautiful.
this one. I just changed the cover, so hence this line across. So I'm sorry about that. But this first one, I wrote it because so many people ask me, so, Natasha, how did you become a psychic? It's not the kind of thing you go to a career counselor when you're at school and say, I'm going to be a psychic when I'm older. It's something that kind of picks you. And I was a reluctant psychic. I was fascinated by metaphysics, but I didn't want to be known. So I kind of rallied against it a bit. And people kept asking me, how did I know how or when I was psychic? How did it evolve? So I thought, well, I'll just write a book and explain it. So I told my stories right from childhood because people will often say, when did you know? Were you a child?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was younger, I'd see things and say things, but my mother, being who she was, she'd just say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're being silly. It's poppycock kind of thing." And then when it turned out, I just went, ha, 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 I was right, told you. So I just thought I was right all the time. I didn't think I was psychic. And so these stories in the book just go through the life and they deal with, I've chosen each story as a representation of how our consciousness works, like why bad things happen to good people. Are you psychic or are you intuitive? Are you crazy or are you psychic? So this book is filled with funny, happy, sad stories followed by teachings in consciousness. And my readers just love this. They say they can't put it down. They really appreciate the humor and they really identify they, there's something in there for everybody. They'll identify for with one of the particular chapters and say, "Oh yeah, that happened to me," or "I get that." So
Yeah.
it's a book for everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I can kind of relate because, sometimes things happen to you and you're like, ooh, what was that? But then, our natural thing is just like either you get fascinated and you get into it more and you read about it, or you're like, meh, you shake it off and you continue your day. I think a lot of people like, it can go both ways. They either get into it or shake it off and continue their day as per normal. And then maybe years later, they're like, oh, well, that kept happening. Now I know what it means. Or they
Exactly.
stumble upon a bug that will actually explain to them what has happened. And they're like, oh, wow, life is mysterious, you know? So I like to hear that you got a really good response from people reading it. Is it on Amazon? Where can we find a copy of
Yeah,
the
it's
book?
absolutely all my books are on Amazon. So if you just go to Amazon and Natasha Rosewood, but if I do have a newsletter, so people can go to my website, natasharosewood.com, sign up for the newsletter, and the links are on the newsletter as well if they have any difficulty finding that.
Okay.
So
Well,
yeah,
attach that is in the video as well in the comments, in the
okay,
description,
thank you,
so they'll be
Ava.
able to find you and subscribe.
Yeah.
So how far do you think the general population has evolved in terms of acceptance of the spiritual real?
Wow, it's been massive. So I started reading, I hate to say this, like 50 years ago. And, my message hasn't changed because I've always talked about energy and we're all evolving towards loving ourselves, expanding, and contributing towards humanity's evolution, actually. And back in the day, people looked at me like, what are you talking about? Whereas now I notice words like manifestation and ownership of people's, what they've created in their lives. There's a lot less victimhood, I would say, in the general populace. People understand more that their thoughts and their feelings kind of attract to them and that they have free will. They can choose a different reality if they so choose. Nothing's written in stone. And I always say that at the beginning of my readings, although I'm seeing this potential for you, you can refuse it, you can accept it, you can go off and go move to Siberia if you want to, nobody's making you do anything here. So everything's a choice. And I think humanity has grown leaps and bounds. And there are so many more people now, what I call on the light side. They're the ones that do believe in love and light and are open to developing their intuition and manifesting their own reality and really being in charge of their lives. And I think that's so beautiful.
Very nice. So why do you think trusting your intuition is so important?
Well, our intuition, especially in this day and age, Ava, where you're getting all the information on social media and the news, and as we've come to know, it's all fake news. We don't know what's real and what isn't. And I said years ago, in the future, intuition is going to be so important because our own inner voice is the only one we can trust. And everybody, if you think about this, everybody is creating their own reality with their own thoughts and feelings and processes. So your reality is going to be very different from mine, could be, or we could be in the same, little bubble, if you like. So listening to your inner voice is your guides and angels speaking to you, guiding you. And I've got a great story in my second book. I thought you were dead, this one. And it's a story about me being on a beach in Florida one Christmas. My fiance had just sadly died the year before, so I didn't want to be home for Christmas. And I was with a girlfriend. She was from New York, and she would always encourage me to get into trouble. She'd always go and do this. And I said, "No, Jill, that's not a good idea." So I got up. We're lying on the beach, and I get up to go for a swim. And she said, "Are you going in the ocean?" I said, "No, I don't think so." And she said, "Well, why not, you big wuss?" I said, "No, there's some sharks. There's a shark in there." She said, "Oh no, they hadn't seen sharks in there for years." I said, and normally I'd listen to it and I'd go and do this naughty thing. And I went, no, I don't think so. This inner voice was saying, don't do it. So I went up to the swimming pool, did my 50 laps or whatever, came back down, and there had been a shark attack on this little boy. He'd just gone in the water.
Wow.
There were the lifeguards on the little ATV things waving everybody out. So I said to Jill, told ya, right?
Mm.
And thank God I listened to that inner voice and not to her. So your intuition can absolutely save your life. And I think it saved my life quite a few times.
Was the boy
And
okay though? Do you know?
he'd been bitten in the back of the leg. So he needed stitches. I mean, a horrible thing for a little boy. He was only
Yeah.
like 11, 12. and I saw him being put into the ambulance. He was conscious and alive, but very scary.
Yeah.
And he made it.
Thank
But
goodness.
maybe his intuition had been telling him not to do it. I don't know. And sometimes, intuition will not protect us, and we will have that event or that accident, but there'll be a gift in that accident for us. So sometimes your intuition can actually guide you towards something that in retrospect doesn't feel very good, but it's taught you there's a gift within it.
Yeah. I love this topic actually because like I said before, sometimes we dismiss the things and then just to find out later, oh, I wish I did it. And it happens to me at least a couple times, well, maybe more a week, whereas like take this road, like I'm coming home or something, it's like take this road, don't go there. It's like it's that very, very faint thing. And then there's times like, yeah, I listen and I go. And then a couple times, I think one time I did, I'm like, oh, why didn't I listen? And it was loud and clear, and I still didn't listen. I kind of just override, what could happen, right? So I think it's really important. But we also have to recognize it and really know ourselves. Because
Yeah,
maybe intuition we won't follow it and something really bad can happen. And there's sometimes it's just a little delay in traffic where you're gonna be 10 minutes late instead of on time. So there's
exactly.
a sometimes big difference between like, maybe that boy, like you said, had intuition not to go in the water, but he's like, what can happen? And he goes and does it and gets attacked. Whereas you,
Yes,
for example, listen and then it could have been you, could have been worse, could have been God knows
exactly.
what, right? So I
Well,
love this topic, yeah.
yeah, it's and it's not just a voice, but it for me it's also a feeling. It depends
Yeah.
whether you're more audio or you're more empathetic. But the question that people ask me, Ava, I used to do psychic development workshops, and people would say, "Well, how do you know if it's fear or whether it's intuition, that voice?" So I used to go skiing, and I love skiing, but I was terrified of heights. And so right before I got on the chairlift, I go, oh my God, I'm gonna die, right? And I go, okay, where's that coming from? And I always say to people, the fear is normally in your head because it's the ego mind talking, and that's where kind of the ego resides most of the time. But if it's in your gut and if it's a feeling that's going right throughout your body, that's intuition, right?
Okay.
So, and then, fear, as we know it, it stands for fear, false evidence appearing real. And I've never fallen off a chairlift or had a chairlift take me down, so I'm still here. So I was right about that. But, it's good to listen to it and just ask the question, is this my own fear? Is this something I'm making up? Or does this feel real? And when it's real, it's kind of going right throughout your body.
Yeah. And another thing is, intuition, it comes and goes really quickly. Whereas fear settles. Like, you'll be writing
Yeah,
it over and over again, or yeah, it might come as like as you're about to go down that mountain, all of a sudden it comes over you. But intuition is very quick and it's like you could say almost painless.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm laughing at you resisting the intuition because a lot of people do. They'll go, "Oh, that's crazy. What? It looks great. Why would I even have this inner voice telling me not to do it?" And this comes up in my readings too. So I'm sitting there channeling and I'm reading my client and they're looking at me like I've got three heads. They said, "Oh, I'd never do that." And "You're crazy, Natasha." And "I'm sure you're a nice lady, but you're nuts." And my response is always, well, yes, I am a bit nuts, but I'm right about this. And I can feel it. And sure enough, they'll call me back 6 months, 2 years, sometimes 15 years later and go, "Remember me? And remember you told me this?" And I go, "No, because I can't remember my readings." They say, "Oh, yeah, you told me this. And I thought you were crazy, but it came true."
Mm,
So, we all kind of fight it. It's like having a parent going, "You should be doing this." And we go, "Don't wanna. I don't wanna."
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
beautiful. So what do you think are the benefits of being intuitive or psychic? I mean, it's kind of an obvious question, but like I want to hear it from you more. Like,
well, for me, it's like having your best friend with you all the time and knowing that you can trust them because, God bless our friends. Sometimes they've got a hidden agenda or they might be jealous or they don't want you to leave. They might give you unconsciously sabotaging your highest good. Whereas your intuition is always coming from that place of what is really for my highest potential. And sometimes I can want things that aren't good for me, like a relationship or, to win the lottery or whatever it is. But your intuition will never let you down. It'll never let you down. It'll always give you the healthiest and the most loving and the wisest information. Whereas, you can ask your parents or your boyfriend or your husband or your friends, um, and they might have, unbeknownst to them, a hidden motive, because they want to keep you close, that kind of thing. So that's one of them. I think you hear a lot of successful businessmen saying, I listened to my gut, I listened to my intuition,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody thought I was crazy, but I did it anyway. And then years later, they're billionaires. So to me, intuition is a level of high, high intelligence. I call it divine intelligence. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm listening to that, I cannot go wrong, right? So for me, also with people's health, I mean, as a practicing intuitive and psychic, whatever you want to call me, and spirit medium, I'm able to use this amazing um, ability to see things and feel things to help so many people in so many ways with their health. I had a lady who came to me, and it was her mother that was in trouble. And this client didn't even bring her up, but I said, "Oh, your mother's taking this medication and it's for her heart, but it's killing her liver. And you need to get a second opinion." And she said, "Well, I have noticed she's not feeling very well lately." So she took my advice, took her to another doctor, and the second doctor said, you know, that had saved her life because she would have died on the other one.
Wow.
And so, I have saved people's lives. I've got too many stories to tell about that, but, I'm so glad that I have this intuition and I can be of service. But that's why I encourage everybody to be their own psychic, to listen to their own intuition, to listen to their own dreams as well, because dreams really are a subconscious talking to us and guiding us as well. So
I'm very big on dreams too. Intuition as well, but I get a lot of insights through my dreams, and people sometimes look at me funny too. It's like, what? Like, but I've always had it since I was little, and
yes,
they I mean, and I've studied dreams for quite some times, for years, so I was able to learn a lot more from that too.
beautiful.
And so many times they just come true, and they're exactly what sometimes they can be puzzling, but that's where
Yes,
I meditate on stuff more and things like that. But I believe it's very important to listen to ourselves. That's what we have,
absolutely,
intuition,
absolutely.
gut feelings, as men like to call it.
Yes, exactly.
And things like that. So, and I've had a couple times, which is very surprising because it doesn't happen often, but I had similar case one time where a friend of mine was sick, and it was this image that came really like, you know how it is. It's just a flash, I call it, kind of thing. And I told my friend, I think you should really go get checked out because I saw this dark matter. And she's like, what? I was like, yeah, you should. I think you should really go get checked out because I saw this thing and I just feel like it would be good. And sure enough, she did go get checked up. And I didn't really want to get into it too much with her, but I was just happy that I was able to convey that message, tell her, and she was able to go to the doctor in time and
Hmm.
deal with the problem she had, right? And on another occasion, a very similar thing, but it was to do with an animal. But unfortunately, my friend didn't listen in time because some people's like, you're just nuts, right? And
Exactly.
unfortunately, her beloved animal, did pass away.
Oh,
Yeah, but at least I was like, I should listen to myself more and tell these things because sometimes they can save a life, and sometimes they can
exactly.
save something that's can happen.
Exactly.
Unfortunate, right?
And I think the whole point is, Ava, that we're all so much more powerful and we have so many more tools available to us, like dreams, like intuition, um, so many things that, I have lots of tools in my little box as well when I help people. And people say, "What do you do?" And I say, "Well, I do whatever it takes. So, if you need a past life regression or if you need a quantum healing or you need a ghost busting or you're the ghost, sometimes, we're haunting ourselves. So we all have these available to us and they're free. So, I'm just always wanting to empower people to say, well, why don't you do this or do that? And just see how, if you feel better, right?
Yeah,
Because you can do it. And even especially healing physical ailments. And, there's a lot of, how prevalent cancer is. And, I've got a few people in my family that are going through things with that. And I've worked with them both to change their mentality and see it as, well, you created this, now you can uncreate it, right? And your body is just molecules moving around and you set the intention for it, you can set a different intention. So just that alone, just being able to heal the physical body because a lot of our ailments come from our emotional stress of some kind and not always from this lifetime. Sometimes it can be from past lives. So, yes, we have a lot of tools and we are powerful.
that's right. So now I want to go back to something you were saying at the beginning of the podcast that you were the child who was psychic and your mom was like kind of like dismissing it. So now let's look forward. So being that you're an adult, and of course there are some psychic children out there, how do you deal with a psychic child? Like any tips and things like that? You can.
That's a great question, Ava, because there are a lot of children who are very, very psychic. And I have clients who come to me and say, oh, I don't know what to do about so and so. And I say, well, have you ever noticed that they might know things that are going on or they're very empathetic? And often difficult children can be very psychic children. So, what I advise parents to do, and I have a very, very psychic niece, and I did the same thing with her. And she'd say things to me, and I'd say, oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. So, how did that feel? Or what were the colors? Or where were you? She thought she was maybe on the Titanic when it went down with her mother. And she said to her mother, remember, you became the mermaid, which struck me as something an adult might say if, to a child who'd lost a mother in the water, kind of thing. Anyway, I just always encourage parents to validate the child and say, well, that's interesting. Can you tell me more? And just get them to explore it and never ever say, well, you don't know what you're talking about, or that's nuts or crazy. We have a grandson that came uh, that when he was little, um, he would come to our house for dinner and he would see the spirit that lived here. And we had a tall man. We called him George. He was benign, he was just hanging out. And, our grandson came up and said, "Oh, Grandy, I can see the man. Is he okay? Is the man okay?" And I said, "Oh, really? Where do you see him?" And his mother was saying, "Oh, there's no man." I said, "Well, actually, there is." And he said, well, over there. And I said, oh, what's he look like? And so I just really went into it with him. And I said, oh, no, oh, that's George. He's fine. He's good. He just likes to hang out with us because he likes us. And he went, oh, okay. And he carried on, went and off and played. So validating them is huge because if you try and deny it, what happens is a split in the person and the child where they don't trust themselves because that is their truth. And if you tell them that's not the truth, then they kind of split off from themselves. And I think that's what's happened to a lot of us, actually. We don't trust our intuition because we were told when we were psychic 2, 3, 4, 5 years old and we saw grandma at the end of the bed, we were told we were nuts and we were crazy and it didn't happen. So we've kind of separated ourselves from our own truth.
Hmm. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I love this topic. So if someone is psychic and now going maybe into the adult life, and are afraid of it, maybe even, how would you recommend they deal with it or bring it forward or however you want to put it?
Okay. Um, well, the first thing I always tell people who are afraid of their own psychic ability is that it's a beautiful gift if and when you want to use it. You don't have to. There's nobody standing over you with a big stick. Although I felt that. I felt like I've got to do this, I've got no choice. The other thing I always recommend that people do if they are psychic and they're afraid of it. It's not good to be in a low vibration and a frequency of fear. If you are psychically open, because this happened to me too, and then I got the psychic attacks, and I got the bad spirits coming and messing with me because I was very confused. I was open, but I wasn't in a good place. So I suggest that if they're not quite ready to open up, is to surround themselves in a white bubble of light to keep their energy safe, and just always kind of affirm that I am safe and I am, in the divine light of intelligence or Christ or whatever your belief system is. And just know that when you're ready, you'll probably want to do it. You won't be afraid anymore. It'll be a fascination. I also ask people, why are they afraid? What are they afraid of? Because it's always good to identify. Well, I think I used to be afraid to meditate because I was afraid what I'd see. So I didn't meditate for years, but I was seeing anyway. So I thought, what am I doing here? So I know I have control over my meditation. It's a different kind of energy than being in a psychic mode. So I encourage people to only do it when they feel ready, to get somebody like myself, a proper coach, to guide them. I also highly recommend that they ground themselves on a regular basis so that their energy is in their body, so that they're not floating off and they're not open to um, what I call vampire energies or psychic attack or anything like that. Because when you're not in charge of it, sometimes, if you are in fear, you can be vulnerable to lower frequency energies. So being grounded, being in a bubble of white light, making peace with it in some way. You don't have to use it, but just saying it's something I've got, it's in my back closet. I'll get it out when I feel ready to. And seek out somebody that you trust as a mentor that can really teach you these safety tips, if you like.
Great tips right there. Thank you so much for sharing. So we could be talking here all day about this topic. So the name of the podcast is Rise and Thrive, Mornings with Intention. How important do you think it is to set intention for the day?
Well, I know I do it every day because they say that the minutes before we go to sleep and the minutes when we first wake up, that's when the opening, I call it, between the conscious mind, the ego, and the alpha or the subconscious is at its it's communicating the most. Once we get up and we go to the loo or brush our teeth or answer our phone, we're back full into ego state and like, what have I got to do today? What am I going to have for breakfast? So in that time before I go to sleep, I like to be say thank you for everything that I have, that I'm grateful for in my day, and look at my wins. Um, because we don't do that enough. Like, what did I do today that I feel good about, even if I didn't complete the list? And then in the morning, wake up and say, again, I'm so grateful for what I have, and thank you for what I'm wanting to bring into my life. So, call that manifestation or intention. For me, it's about being here, loving, being open, surrendering to the universe, and having fun.
Beautiful.
Those,
I
those are
love
my
that.
intentions.
Well, guys, there you have it. A beautiful podcast here with Natasha. And guess what? We're gonna have her back on our podcast. So you guys have to subscribe and follow me to be able to see the next podcast. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Natasha, for being on our podcast. And it was a pleasure to hear all your wonderful stories and insights. And again, once again, all the links to the books we'll post in this video. So thank you again for watching, and I hope everyone has a beautiful day. And thank you, Natasha, for being here.
Blessings to everybody and you, Ava. Thank you.
Thank you so much.